What is up, everyone? As you guys know, our main project right now is swapping this Volkswagen 1.T in the E36, and it's coming out absolutely amazing. So we're gonna let this sit for a couple days as we stack up parts so we could have a little bit more denser content on that for you guys. But in the meantime, I have some things I gotta do and some things I wanna do, and I think you guys will really enjoy this one. As you guys know, I pulled the cherry hatch out of its corner. It's been sitting for many, many years, and this thing needs a proper tune. I got all the rest of the parts back in it so I could drive it, but it needs to be tuned. And I've been seeing a lot of comments lately about the process of tuning and how to do it. So today, in this video, we're gonna do a how to tune your car on a standalone ECU. So before we even plug into this ECU, there's some concepts that we need to talk about so you guys understand what's happening here. You could follow along, and honestly, if you have no care about ever plugging into a computer, that's fine. But this video will really help you guys understand what is actually happening underneath the hood of your car. Our weekly poll: who the hell said no on cheesecake? I don't trust that guy. You guys ever notice? I don't know. We don't film in the shop very often, but we always have a weekly poll going on. I guess this week is cheesecake. So let me do a quick disclaimer for myself, because this is the internet. And the internet sucks. So I'm gonna keep this as broad as possible, right? I'm gonna keep this as general as I can, but accurate enough so you guys could really understand what's going on. It doesn't just go over your head. I'm not gonna try and sit here and put a coat on and try to sound like the smart guy that just say words that just most people don't even follow so they could sound cool, whatever. We're gonna keep it simple. Jordy, come here. We're learning how to tune today. I'm gonna teach you. If I could teach you, I could teach the world.
Nice. Yeah, let me get behind that computer.
Do you know anything that's happening underneath that computer?
I just know that the fuel table has a really cool red to green fade.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Right? So what are the two main things?
Air, fuel,
And
spark.
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna talk about first. We're gonna talk about air fuel ratio, and we're gonna talk about ignition timing, because I know, especially with ignition timing, a lot of people are like, advanced retard. What does that mean?
I can tell you what one of them means.
What is that graph?
Good.
What are your accesses? What are your accesses? Yeah.
Questions?
Air fuel ratio, also known as stoic, right? You're gonna hear that term stoic from all the fancy people. Oh, what's the stoic? Oh, it's your air fuel ratio. All right, so everyone knows this damn number of 14.7. Jordy, what the hell's 14.7?
It's a magic number, apparently.
There we go. I haven't prepped Jordy. He just came out of the bathroom.
Right? That was good though.
So that's the stoic of pump gas, right? So basically 14.7 parts of air to 1 part of fuel, right? That makes sense. That's like the ideal stoic of pump gas, right? That's the most efficient burn. That's 100% of it, whatever. So chemistry, who cares? What does this number mean? People hyper fixate on this number of 14.7. We'll talk later on about how this will change and where it needs to change. Now, the next big thing is ignition timing. Boom, that's a big one. Not mechanical timing. It gets mixed up with mechanical timing all the time, right? Because when you say if you timed your engine, you could talk about the mechanical timing, which is literally your timing chain, your timing belt, which is the timing of your cams to your crank. This is your ignition timing, which is when your coils are firing compared to TDC, top dead center. Mechanical timing, see, cams, crank gear, how this all aligns with each other. That is mechanical timing, not ignition timing. How does that make sense? This is a big separation. This one blows over people's head all the time. So, and then we have, I'm not an artist, by the way.
Clearly.
All right, whatever. Wow, that's a up piston. I can make it all fancy, a little skirt to it. You like that? Hell yeah, that's the rod should be bent at this part of the, okay, whatever. And this is the head. Well, it go up and it goes down, right? Ignition timing is when this spark plug fires in reference to where the hell the piston is. So as you guys know, the piston will come down and pull that air and fuel into it, and then it's gonna go and compress all of it, and then that mixture is then combusted and it shoots the piston down, right? And that's what pushes the piston and rotates the engine, which spins the wheels and all that good stuff. So we need to pick the optimal time to ignite that mixture to then send the piston down. And that is what you're doing when you're tuning. You're trying to pick that optimal time to ignite that flame front to then send the piston down. Because the position and the time at which you ignite that mixture is gonna really affect your power band and the safety of your engine. Our optimal ignition timing and our optimal AFR will both change. right? And it changes on this basis of a graph. And this is gonna be our graph, right? This is like the universal graph here. We have engine speed, also known as RPM, and then you'll have your load source. So when it comes to load sources, this is essentially how much air is getting into your cylinder. We'll keep it broad like that. Now there's a couple different load sources that people tune on, right? We're gonna have MAP, which is gonna be like speed density, which is measuring vacuum and boost. Then we have TPS, also known as alpha N, you'll hear that term, which is based off of the position of the TPS, which is commonly used on the ITB cars. And then the OE style, which is gonna be a MAF, which is a mass airflow meter, which is just a direct measurement of airflow.
You couldn't have said it any better, Jim.
Good. No, because I need you guys, because if you guys, okay, theoretically, as you know, engine RPM increases, you know, the load source increases, right? That's what we could assume, right? Because engine speed picks up, we're able to get more air, or I mean, they work with each other. You get more air into it, the engine speed is able to pick up, and it keeps going, right? What we have to worry about is how our AFR and our ignition timing is changing throughout this transient experience through the pull. We'll say through the pull. As your engine speed increases and your load source increases, these numbers are going to change, and tuning is basically picking the most optimal numbers for both of these situations that are both optimal for power and optimal for safety.
Gotcha.
And that's tuning, right? That's tuning that's dyno tuning, that's full throttle tuning. The hard part about tuning is there's so much more beyond that. There's drivability, there's cold start, there's hot start, there's cruising, there's partial throttle, there's all of that stuff in between, but we're gonna be focusing on the optimization of these two, on making power on the dyno. Well, let's figure out how to optimize these two things.
Jim, what's the advanced retard thing that you were talking about?
You should know all about that. all right. Let's talk about ignition timing and, well, what these numbers actually do for us. Let's talk about what's happening here, right? So we have our compression stroke, right? This is the air and fuel have already come in, and it's going to compress it. Then we have the TDC, which is the piston at the very top, and then we have our combustion cycle. Jordy told me to do that. So at TDC, this will be 0, right? That's our 0 timing mark. When we go towards the combustion stroke, we're gonna go into the retard state. And then when we go before the final compression, this will be advanced. The more we go before top dead center, that's advancing the timing, the more we go this way, right? Or after, it's the retard. Anywhere moving in this direction is retard, anywhere moving in the opposite direction is advanced. You guys could nitpick me all you want. There's a bunch of keyboard tuners in there. You can get way more in depth with all of these concepts, but I'm trying to keep it as broad as possible. You guys can understand how it all works. The flame front needs to start activating, right? It takes time. It takes time for the reaction to happen. So if you ignite it, that flame needs to build. It needs to hit all the molecules and start reacting through the entire mixture, which takes time. And you want to start activating that before you get to the top. But the problem is you don't want to activate it too early, because if you activate it too early, guess what? That flame's going to go off, and it's going to go off before you hit TDC, and it's going to want to kick the engine backwards. Combustion is going to work in the wrong direction. Does that make sense?
Inefficient.
You want the combustion to happen at the peak time that the reaction has the most amount of energy in the downward stroke. The more efficient you can combust that mixture, the more it's going to push down that piston and produce more power. So the problem is here that there is a million different factors that affect the time at which we want to ignite our mixture. Airflow, air temp, fuel temp, compression ratio, cylinder size, piston shape. It all dictates where the optimal time is to ignite this mixture in the terms of being safe and producing a lot of power. That being said, this is where the dyno actually comes in hand. dyno, right? Everyone knows the dyno is used to measure horsepower. And what we are using this tool actually for is to not only simulate our road conditions, our pool conditions, but we're gonna use this as our, well, reference for gains and losses. With each pool, we can make different changes and we can see how it affects the power band, if it affects it for the good, if it affects it for the bad, and we will use that data to then adjust our tunes. That's why we always say, like, sometimes the numbers aren't really important. It's more or less the comparable data between runs. Setting up a base map is a whole system in itself. We've done videos on that in the past. A lot of guys can kind of bobble through that. You set up your, you set up your sensors, you go through that, you set up your baseline, you lock ignition timing, it's all that. So this will be based around mainly the power making aspect of it. To start off with, we have a four-cylinder turbo. Tuning turbo engines is a lot more fun than the average engine. Like NA engines maybe might be rewarding to some people, but turbo engines are fun because, well, you turn up the boost, you make a lot more power. But what we have here is a S13 SR20, completely stock engine. It has some pond cams in it, has some drop-in cams. We have an upgraded Disco Potato turbo. It's like a GT28 something or other. I don't even know what's on here, to be honest. And the big thing is we are on pump gas and we are controlling this by a link ECU. Okay, so here's the thing, right? We want to advance the ignition timing as much as we can because as we advance the timing, we will produce more power. To a certain extent, right? Because there's a graph here, right? If we do this, we'll do advanced. So as we advance it, we will produce more torque. Right, horsepower is just a function of torque, we'll just say torque. The more we advance it, the more power we will produce. Obviously, too much of a good thing is bad, and it starts to then hinder power. We are looking for this moment where we produce the most amount of where we produce the most amount of torque per ignition advance, right? And this is called, I think they call it MPT. I think that's the
What does that stand for?
Most power per torque, I think.
Per pork.
Per pork, I think. NPT is what they call it, right? So this is the peak point. Here's the problem. We have engine knock, pinging, detonation, whatever you want to call it. It is the killer of engines. There's some million ways to kill engines, but we got to worry about making too much power that the internals can't hold up to it physically, and we got to make sure that we also are not creating knock, detonation, ping, whatever you want to call it, that is going to actually rattle the engine and break the piston, smush the bearing, bend the rod, whatever. That's the hard part because a lot of times, most of the time, especially on pump gas, we will be getting into that knock range way before we get to that NPT range. As we advance the timing, we are igniting this earlier and earlier in the stroke. The earlier we do it, the more chances we could of that flame actually acting against us, right? Because we want the flame to push the piston down in the stroke. But if it pushes against the piston on the upstroke, guess what? Now you have two forces fighting each other and stuff's gonna break. So we gotta make sure we avoid that at all costs. You guys have noticed that we love tuning on ethanol around here. The nice thing about ethanol is it's a very stable fuel. The chances of it knocking is gonna be dramatically lower than pump gas. Now the reason why I'm able to say that we can make more power on ethanol most of the time is because we could push a little bit farther because we're not stressed about hitting that wall of knock before we get to that peak power range. Pump gas is scary because it's more volatile, it's more sensitive, it's less stable. And so the chances of knocking on pump gas is way higher. So you have to be way more mindful of what you're doing when it comes to AFR and ignition timing because of that reason. And that's the whole point of octanes. Like you guys have seen 87 octane, 88 octane, 91, Sunoco's 94, and then the European guys, they get like 99 to like 102. It's like the same thing, it's a different scale. It's not actually higher octane, it's a different scale, all right? Because you're gonna get all those guys like, oh, I have 99 at my pump. It's just a different scale, they're the same. So the higher the octane, the more stable the fuel is. That's why the high-end cars, the engines that are factory high compression, the engines that are factory turbo, they
call for 93 or above.
They call for 93, right? Because if your engine starts seeing knock, which you will on low octane fuel, it's gonna pull a bunch of timing and it's gonna take a bunch of power out of your car. So like if you can get yourself something good like a Sunoco 94, your chances of knock drop dramatically and you can have a safer, higher power level.
Way higher efficiency.
Just from the pump itself by just spending an extra couple of bucks at the pump. So if your car is on pump gas and you have the opportunity to stop at a Sunoco station and get 94 octane, it is worth the peace of mind. Right now on the dyno, we have 94 octane in this thing, so I'm able to lean on it a little bit more while having a lot more confidence. So now that we've yapped a bunch, We have our basis set, we have the general idea. Now it's time to plug into the computer and start setting up for our tune. All right, boys, so you just plugged into your standalone for the first time. I don't care if you have a Haltech, a Link, ECU Masters, a Motec, we're gonna be looking at our two main things right now. That's gonna be our fuel table and our ignition table. And like we talked about before, we have our axis that is load on the left. You see it? Manifold absolute pressure. So we will be on speed density, so we'll be measuring vacuum and boost. And then we have our RPM, which is on the top here, or on the bottom, depending on how you set it set up. And so we're gonna have load versus RPM. That is the same between ignition table and your fueling table. This is the hard part, because I could talk about this for setting up a table for 10 minutes straight. Like, maybe we should do like an hour and a half video next time.
We probably could.
We
easily.
could. I'm just hoping that the general car guy isn't looking at this and going, it's above my head, I don't want it. You know, I'm trying to keep this simple so you guys can actually learn what's happening. And so, one, if you want to give it a shot yourself, you have a foundation to build off of. Or two,
if you want to sound smart to your buddies.
You want to sound smart to your friends, most importantly. Oh yeah, ignition, advance that bitch, like, or just want to help follow along when your car is a dyno and your tuner is doing this thing. So obviously your load axis, you want to set up in a range that is real. You want to make sure that you are within enough vacuum, because your engine pulls vacuum at idle, that you're in that idle and cruising conditions. And then you want to make sure that it's high enough that you're not boosting or producing more load beyond the map, right? This car will not be over 20 psi, so we have our fuel table at 19 psi. That'll keep us in that range. And of course this thing will be revving to 7,500 rpm, so this thing will probably set it up to go to 8,000. That's all simple stuff, right? Now this is the tricky part. How do I start off? We see all these numbers here, right? Our ignition table is easy, it's straightforward. This number right here is your ignition timing. If it's a positive number, it's advanced. If it's a negative number, it's retard. So down here we have, you see this big lump of 31. That's 31 degrees before top dead center. Now when it comes to the fuel table, this could be a little bit tricky for some people's brain to wrap around, but we can make it simple for you. Now this number is a little different between every ECU, because every ECU does do it a little bit differently, but overall on the most modern ECU, it's set up to be your VE, the volumetric efficiency, right? So this is the theoretical volumetric efficiency of your engine. As you guys know, as load increases, RPM increases, there's points in the combustion that the engine is being more efficient. Your RPM increases, your load increases, the fuel requirements increase. And so this number will increase. We'll kind of dumb it down there. We found out where the car wants to idle, right? The AFRs are clean. By clean, I'm gonna say it's between 12 and 15. So let's think about this. Let's use our brains, right? Because you're a lot smarter than you think. I truly think people are a lot smarter than they think. They just are like, no, that sounds like I'm not gonna get it. I'm not gonna understand it, right? I think that's a pretty fair objective. Yeah. If you try to think things out, you're a lot smarter than you think. Think about it, right? Idle conditions, boys, right? Our RPM is gonna be around where?
800 to 1,000.
Perfect, 800 to 1,000. So here, right? 800 to 1,000. Where is our load source gonna be? It's gonna be at the lowest point. And that's gonna be either, if you're on a MAF or alpha N, it's gonna basically be the lowest number, TPS, basically 0. Or if you're in speed density or map, right? If you use a map sensor, you're gonna be in vacuum, because engines pull vacuum at idle most, okay? 800 to 1,000 and bring it down, right? So we're gonna be idling in this area. That logically all makes sense, right? Now this you could just figure out with the car just idling. It's not stressful. You're not gonna hurt your car idling unless the thing's basically misfiring from too much fuel. You're not gonna hurt it. You can lean it out. It don't matter. It's gonna run like shit. But let's just start from 0. In this area we have 38, right? 38. Whole map's 38. So obviously this will be our lowest fuel needs at idle. There's the least amount of load on the engine. It's just chilling. It needs enough just to run. So obviously we're gonna need more fuel everywhere else. Now let's think about where it's gonna need the most fuel.
At redline.
Not at redline. See, this is the thing.
Really?
At peak torque.
Okay.
At peak torque, right? And so, from someone who's been around this a little bit, where do engines usually tend to make the most amount of peak torque?
I would assume 4,200.
Okay. That's a good guess. So depending on your turbo size, right, how quickly the turbo spools in, it's gonna vary a little bit, but on a turbo 4-cylinder, you're gonna be around probably 4,000 to 5,000. We will go over here and peak boost, right? Because the more boost we have, the more air in the cylinder, the more fuel we're gonna need. And then at peak torque, this will probably be our highest number. So we'll double it for now, right? It's arbitrary. We might need more, but we're gonna set up this shape whatever. We now know our lowest and we know our highest. And well, this next section is kind of where experience comes in, or you could even just use common sense, but what the hell is common sense, honestly? And this will help kind of dictate the shape of our graft. And depending on what kind of engine, what camshafts, what turbo you have, it will be different, but the general mild camshaft turbo engine, which is going to be 80% of the people here, it'll be the rough of the same shape. So here's a cheat code for the new guys, all right? There are a lot of maps out there. You can get them on the internet. Don't just put them in your car and just go do pulls. But they'll give you a reference, and even if we go on to link startup calibrations, that will give us some type of baseline to work off of and give us somewhat of like a general shape. It's a little bit of a cheat code. Like when I first started tuning, I started off with the general concepts, and I started off with looking at base maps and just experimenting and see what we can get away with, right? With that, you could take yourself pretty far. So let's open up like a baseline calibration. Let's use a JZX one. How about that? We'll use a JZX base map from Link. We're gonna look at our field table. If we look at our generic base map from Link for the JZX, which is a turbo, it's not a 4-cylinder, it's a turbo engine, you could see, look, our peak torque and our highest numbers are in the same area. Follow the same concept, and then in our idle conditions, it's the lowest numbers. Essentially, as you could tell, this graph kind of builds out towards that. You know, one of the biggest things that stuck with me was from Derek from Bootleg Tuning. He made a good point. An engine should always work in a fluid, organic motion, right? There's no erraticness to it. Your load comes in very organic and fluid. Your RPM comes in very fluid. The air going in, the fuel coming in, it all works in this smooth motion. There should be no erraticness to it. And that being said, your fuel table, which is your VE, your volumetric efficient table, should follow suit. And there's a reason why you'll see tables like this. Like you'll see your tuner kind of like spinning this thing around. And this is just the 3D model of our graph. And so this puts it into a visible image that we could see. And as you could tell, it's smooth. It's supposed to be smooth. It's supposed to be this gradual climb, this gradual hill. And if it doesn't look like this, then you have something wrong. And that's what I see a lot with new tuners or DIY tuners versus OG tuners. OG tuners will reference their 3D table to make sure it all works in this fluent motion, because that's how it should work. If your AFRs are spot on and this thing looks crazy, there's something mechanically wrong. If everything works mechanically perfect and it doesn't look like this, then your tune's wrong. Your tune's inefficient, it's erratic, it doesn't make sense. And so that's why you'll see a lot of guys reference this table. Your efficiency of your engine should be this
gradual smooth motion.
This gradual smooth motion. So this is idle conditions and this peak torque, and it should have this gradual climb to it, just like a graph. I mean, like watch this. Like, let's just randomly say, I'll see a lot of new tuners do stuff like this where there's clusters. You open up your 3D model and then look at that. Does that look right?
No.
Does that look like a fluid motion? And that's why you can kind of use, look at that. That tells you something's wrong. Obviously it's a little distorted because it's meant to show you that something's wrong. We have our general base of our fuel map, and so let's use this as like a reference, right? So, okay, double increase. So we'll come back to our map. You're never in this range, this doesn't matter, right? You're never here. So this is the tuner cheat code right here, interpolation. Now what is interpolation? It's kind of like, the broadest way of putting it is it's kind of like a bridge of average, a smoothing between 2 points. That's probably the easiest way to put it. So this is a horizontal plane, so we'll do interpolate horizontally, right? See how it creates this nice blend for us? So we will use that right here. Interpolate. We'll do a vertical. Interpolate. Look at this, dude. We are making a fuel map. We probably decrease from peak torque, right? And then look at that. That looks kind of like something, doesn't it? You see what we're working with? Has that nice gradual curve. And obviously this is so far off from where we need to be, but this will give us a baseline, and then we're gonna use our dyno to actually get this thing locked in. We've learned a lot before even doing a pull, but you need to know it. Where'd you go? You fucking skipped class. You got the tension, brother. You're doing tires after work. We have to now talk about kind of the similar thing, ignition timing. And this is the scary part, right? Because anyone could do pulls on the road and adjust these numbers until the AFRs make sense. The big things that separates a new tuner and an old tuner is going to be the attack on the timing table. So what the hell do we do for ignition timing? Where do we even start? This is a scary thing, and this is one of those things that we can talk about for hours. There's so many variables to it, but we're gonna keep this nice and simple. So, as simple as we can. Our idle conditions, this will be obviously the bottom left like we talked about. Can we see this on the thing? So, when you're picking an idle ignition timing, this number is gonna be basically anywhere from 10 to 25. You're not gonna hurt your engine idling with ignition timing. Like, honestly, you're not gonna hurt it, so play around with it. Here's the thing, you just want your engine to idle efficiently. The more we advance the timing, the more power the engine makes at idle, and it's gonna idle it stronger and at a higher RPM. But the same concept works in reverse. Say the engine sounds like it's too efficient at idle, and you want it to idle down a little bit, we can actually retard it. You know, we can go from 20, we can go to 10, we take 10 degrees out of it. We're getting closer to the top of that stroke, and it won't idle as efficiently, which will allow it to idle at a lower RPM. And that's kind of like a general way of doing it. I like to be somewhere between 18, like 15 and 18. So I'm just gonna put 18, right? Some engines are more efficient than others at idle. Think about like higher compression, different camshafts, all of that. Now, if we go into this condition right here, so our bottom right, this is gonna be higher RPM, but no load. And that's gonna be our revving condition. That's gonna be like your clutch is in, you're revving it, you're sitting there, you're revving it with your friends, whatever, right?
You're starting to overheat a little bit, trying to keep everything flowing.
See, he knows. So once again, there's no load on the engine. You're not really in a danger zone of knock, right? Since there's not really a lot happening in the chamber, it's not under a lot of stress, it's gonna treat you good, and you don't really gotta worry about knock. So here's the thing, OEs and a lot of people, you want to put a lot of timing in it because you want your engine to be efficient in that zone, because you want it to be snappy, you want it to feel good, you want it to be quick. And so a lot of OEs will go anywhere from 25 degrees all the way up to even, I've seen 50 on some OEMs, which is crazy. So we're going to put this in a general consensus of 35 degrees, and then we're just going to blend it out, right? This is just generic tuning. Now we're in the scary condition, and that is above atmospheric pressure. This is within boost. Right, so this is turbo car stuff. This is where it all matters, because as the boost increases, the load increases, the chances of detonation increase dramatically. Where does the engine make the most power? At peak torque. So we gotta make sure that is gonna be our biggest danger zone. But we could use some general rule of thumbs, stuff that does come with experience, or stuff that just comes with having ample information on drivetrains, like Miatas. There's so much information on tuning Miatas online that you could start somewhere, okay? The general rule of thumb, depending on who you're talking to, is usually around retarding the timing 1 degree per PSI. All right, we could use that as a general rule of thumb. That's not the case all around, but it'll get you started. So what I wanna do is I wanna start somewhere around 25 degrees, all right? And then we'll just blend it, all right? See that? And then we'll just fucking do one of these. Smooth it all out, right? Because just like the fuel table, this should be a fluent motion. This shouldn't have any erraticness inside of it. So we will pull 20, right? So that's 20 PSI. We'll pull 20 out of it. This is a very aggressive pull.
Yep.
This is going to be our general baseline for an ignition table following general ideas. And now we are going to use this dyno to get the information we need to optimize this graph. This is actually that's actually pretty, that looks very SR actually. This might not be super far off. So, all right. Time to do some tuning. I forgot to talk about what the target for air fuel ratio. This one will be quick, all right? Jordy, what do we target for AFRs?
14.7. It's the magic number, right?
That's what the government wants you to think.
Big brother.
Big brother. All right. What we have here is like our other graphs. We have RPM versus load source. This is an absolute, so right here is when we get into boost. 14 point, we break an atmosphere. Okay, so target AFRs can be argued up and down, left and right. Depends on everyone's tuning style, what the car's for, road use. We're all racing, drifting, it doesn't matter. Everyone has their own concepts, but I'm gonna give you a general idea here. So in idle and cruising conditions, 14.7 is ideal, the perfect stoic. The revving, the idle, and the cruising, which is gonna be all in these conditions, right? Which is RPM basically with very little load in it, we could assume that 14.7 is our ideal condition. That being said, sometimes, depending on your engine setup, it might want less. big ass cam in it, it's a V8, it might want 15.5 in those conditions. If it's an inefficient head with some whatever in it, it might want 12.5, which is fine. You're not gonna hurt it with that. Your fuel economy might be a little shit. It is what it is. You just wanna make sure you're not like buried in the 10s, buried in the 11s in these conditions, because then you're just putting excess fuel in your system, potentially washing your cylinders, whatever, and you're just wasting fuel for no reason. Big thing is in the boost conditions. Above 0 PSI, we're gonna wanna target somewhere in the 11s. I'm gonna keep that broad. This is on pump gas. This will change with your fuel on pump gas. We could say 11.5. 11.5 is like industry standard, all right? That's within modern boost limitations. If you increase boost and your cylinder pressures get really high, you're gonna wanna probably richen it up a little bit. I've seen some guys even target 11.8, 12 on pump gas, but that is up to them. This is where there's gonna be a balance of ignition timing and fuel, because the big thing that we are using that rich condition for, because you're probably like, dude, why don't you just use 14.7? Lean is mean, brother, right? You've heard that?
Sounds like that thing's gonna blow up.
A lot of the time we are using the fuel to cool down the cylinder and make this combustion a little bit safer, to make it less sensitive and to make it not detonate on us. Because what are we going to be fighting the entire time? That is detonation or knocking. If your turbo is super small, if the compression's higher, you might want to do it even richer to help dampen that cylinder with more fuel mass and cooling capabilities. This is a drift, we'll say it's a drift car, so I'm going to target 11.2. Some people might hate that. Some guys even target richer. We'll just kind of blend it in the transients, all right? Now let's start doing some pulls, finally, all right? Now that you guys know how to tune, you got this, Joe. Yeah, I just taught you how to do this.
For sure, yeah. I'm just gonna put numbers in and hope it works.
This thing's smoking a lot, huh?
We're also talking mad shit about the blow-off valve. You got one on this.
I was gonna say, like, it's been a big blow-off valve season, hasn't it? Is this turbo finally let go? It's old.
Disco potato got cooked.
Oh man. All right. So before we start doing a pull, watch our tracer right here. This is telling us where it's pulling from the data right here. This is on our fuel table. So we have low load, low RPM. As I rev it up, you're gonna see it's still low load, but the RPM increases. So you just wanna make sure your AFRs are clean in that revving condition before you start doing anything. It'll kind of help you get an idea of the way the map looks. So if you look at our AFR gauge right here, shows that it gets a little lean at the higher RPM, so we can kind of just clean this up on the bottom real quick. And a general consensus, we'll put about 4% more fuel in it. We'll just do a quick blend and we'll try that one more time. All right, so we have a basis for an ignition table. We're gonna start there. Now with the fueling, it's as simple as basically changing these numbers on the graph to make sure we get our desired AFR, which is what we talked about prior. I'm gonna do a couple half pulls and see how it transits into them. First pull, we're gonna start on wastegates, not making a lot of boost. It's probably gonna be around 10 PSI, 12 PSI. We wanna make sure the fueling is in a safe range. It doesn't have to be perfect. We wanna make sure it's basically a little bit, it's at least above 10 and below, in this range, I'd say like 12.2. If you see it any richer, any leaner, lift and adjust accordingly. We're gonna do a pull real quick, going off our theoretical map, and we're gonna be staring at that AFR gauge. That was actually pretty spot on, wasn't it? I was looking at through the camera, but like, that's funny. We're not super far off our theoretical, which is like a win. Most of the time you'll be quite off and you're gonna have to adjust accordingly. This is a very simple setup that we've done a million times. And so here we go. We got our first baseline, and then let's see what she did. So now let's look at all the information we got. We logged on the computer, which I should have said before I did the pull. This is our log. This is very simplistic. We can plot all our data here, or we have access to it all on the side. Link's logging software is really freaking nice because it logs everything the ECU sees. So if there's some information you're looking for, from pulse width to activation of accessories to ignition timing to AFRs to anything you need, you're gonna have it. This is what we're gonna see what the car did under the pull. And the dyno is gonna show us the outputted results. Pretty solid power band for a 2-liter turbo. right? The torque increases with boost, holds it pretty good, and then falls off as the head becomes inefficient. With that, the power increases. It's a nice linear line. We made 292 horsepower and 264 pounds of torque. First pull. We got really, really lucky on that one because the AFRs were super clean. As you guys saw, once we got in the boost, we were in that 11.5 range. It did get a little leaner, it did get a little richer, and then this is where we're gonna make our adjustments. So we look at our log, you could see, we could look at our boost. So we'll go boost increase pretty linearly. It's not the most aggressive spool ever. Yeah, this turbo kind of sucks. I think it's hurt or you have a boost leak or something, because usually you're gonna wanna see boost kind of ramp and level off. But this mimics our power band, right? On turbo cars, the power band and the boost curve is gonna be very similar because obviously as you make more boost, you're gonna make more power. Now this is where we're gonna make our adjustments. So before I touch my ignition table, since I know we're not super far away, I'm gonna be playing with my fueling. Go to our fuel table right here. We're gonna open it up, and as you can see, this will actually trace the pull. You see how it traces it? It actually shows you what cells were hit during a pull. Because obviously it's not gonna touch all of them. It's only gonna touch the cells that are actually used under the conditions. I mean, 80% of these graphs you don't touch ever. Really, it's gonna be kind of in a pull, it's gonna be something along the lines of this. See how it traces it? That's so nice, because not every ECU does that. So we could see the zones where we went, and then we could adjust those zones accordingly. We did our first pull very old school. The wideband is not communicating to the ECU. We weren't able to record the wideband data and plot it against our log, which allows us to adjust it very easily. We did it old school, baby. We looked at the AFR gauge. This is how a lot of tuners did stuff for a long time. Dude, we've been on the dyno with, I've seen Derek do it, I've seen Jimmy do it, where you record the AFR gauge with your iPhone and play it back. We're adults here, so let's put our AM wideband into our link ECU. She's wired in. Now we got the wideband actually talking to the ECU, so we can log this and it'll make tuning a heck of a lot easier. So now this will make your life a lot easier because we could just look at the log. So right here, what I have plotted is, of course, RPM, because that's gonna be our main reference. And we have boost on top. Those are our two main references, right? Those are our two accesses. If you look, we're gonna have target AFR, which is that stable looking line, plot that against actual AFR. And that will tell us how much we need to adjust it. Since we know what our target is, we don't gotta think, right? Because if we pull up our graph, because if you look at any point on the graph, you see how for this split, for halfway through the pull, we're basically on target, which is really nice, right on top of the line. But you could see it falls beyond target, which means it's going richer. And up here, it's above target, which means it's on the lean side. Using that information, it makes it really easy to adjust our fuel table. We could watch our cursor. So if you see it down here in our fuel table, now that is the three columns that we were now lean on. So we'll take this and we look at this point, our actual we're about 15% off. So this is everyone's styles differently, but we could apply that percent difference to where it is. So we'll say right here, right? So we're gonna keep it on the light side because that's 15% a lot. So we'll do 12%. It should hopefully clean this gap up right here. So with our changes, we should get this a lot closer to target. So look at that. Look how close we are to target the entire time. See? So when it comes to actually creating your fuel table, it's such an easy concept, right? You're looking at your AFRs, what they should be and what they are, and you're just changing the number to accommodate for a higher number, more fuel, less number, less fuel. It's as simple as that. Now, the finesse comes with just doing it over time. You get a little erratic when you first start doing it, but it's as simple as that. And if it starts to get out of range, just shut down. Make your adjustments and go from there. Bro, you're late to class.
What?
We're teaching them how to tune today.
No way.
I'm trying my hardest to say as least as possible so this video is not 4 hours long.
Did you give a disclaimer that if you guys blow up your car, it's not Jimmy's fault?
Oh, that's a good one. I should have fucking
You
said that.
really gotta start with that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's put that at the beginning of the video. Disclaimer. The fueling's clean at our boost level, which is good. Now, what we want to do is we want to check if our ignition timing is where we want it to be, right? We'll do it before we turn the boost up and things get more dangerous. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to pull 2 degrees out of it, and then I'm going to put 2 degrees in it from where we're standing and see how that affects our power bands. Then we're going to look at the data outputted by the dyno and make a decision based off of that. Everywhere in boost, we'll just take 2 degrees out. Let's see what the dyno tells us, baby. If you're street tuning, cross your fingers. So let's check this out. So if you could look, it's exactly what we expected to see. The middle line is going to be our first timing, our theoretical timing. The lower number will be when we took 2 degrees out, and the higher number will be where we put the 2 degrees in from base, right? We want to see power increase with advance. We want to see power decrease with retard. We only lost 2 horsepower by taking 2 degrees out, but we gained 12 putting it in. But this is where you need to make the call, and this is where experience really comes in hand, and seeing what you can get away with certain setups, certain engines, certain fuel, whatever. So this is where we decide if it's worth it, because we're on that teeter edge of wanting to produce as much power as we can by advancing our timing, but making sure we're not gonna cause the engine to have any situations of knock. If you look at it, we gained 12 horsepower in the very, very tippity top, right? Now, overall, you guys might notice the lines are very similar to each other. So we didn't really gain much power per ignition timing, which means we're very close to that MPT point, that peak torque per ignition timing point. So this isn't worth it. Like, to put 4 degrees in something to pick up almost just a couple horsepower, it's not worth it. You're putting yourself 4 degrees closer in the danger zone. We don't need that. So what that tells us is we could leave the 2 degrees out in this area, and we won't lessen power, and we'll just gain safety. That makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. But in this area, it did pick up pretty well. And here's the thing. Usually if the gains are very large on the ignition timing, like if I put 1 degree and I put 2 degrees and it picks up 10, 15, 20 horsepower, it means it likes it. You could be under timed, and this is a huge process too. When I first started tuning, I was scared of ignition timing. I was freaked out by it because I was like, if I put a bunch of timing in it, it's gonna detonate, I'm gonna break a piston, everyone's gonna hate me, right? Like, that's what it is. But there becomes danger with lack of ignition timing because other aspects come into effect. The big thing is you're creating more heat and you're creating more back pressure. And with that, it's also gonna promote detonation. So there is a window, so don't be scared to go after it, but obviously don't be too aggressive. So now the question is, what do I wanna do? So this will get more exaggerated as we increase the power by turning the boost up. So let's start turning the boost up, correcting the fuel to the boost, and then we'll try this test again at higher boost numbers, and it should give us better data. So we got plenty of room to put some boost in this thing, so we're gonna turn up on the boost controller and make some more power. So, of course, try to do this in increments, and as you do it, adjust your fueling accordingly, because now you're gonna be in different load cells, right? Because now we are at 1 boost, which is gonna put us higher in the next level of load cells, and if you keep adjusting your fueling accordingly, by the time you get to the peak boost, your graph should be clean in all the zones. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna put 20% in this thing and see how much power she makes. So we did 3 pulls back to back, increasing the boost levels by about 2 psi on each pull, or a psi and a half. And as you could see, each graph got larger because, of course, as we increase boost, it increases power, which is sick. That's why turbo cars are so fun. It makes you feel like a god when you're tuning, because you're like, I'm making so much power. You're just turning the duty cycle up. So now we are officially at 335 horsepower and 330 foot-pounds of torque. And now, this is where we have to make another call. When do we stop? You could keep turning the boost up. The turbo is at like 18 psi. It can make a lot more. When do you call it? This is where you need to do your research and make sure you understand how strong the internals of your engine are. If it's an NAT setup, if it's a turbo engine, whatever, there's plenty of data online. For me, I don't like making more than like 315 foot-pounds of torque, 325 foot-pounds of torque on a stock SR. And we're a little bit past that. So we're gonna pull a little bit out of it. But for learning ideas, now let's readjust our timing and see what we get here, because now we should have a larger resolution of results due to timing. Let's run it back to back. We're gonna pull 2 degrees of timing from where we're at, and then we're gonna add two. Let's just start with pulling 2 degrees first, okay? Well, this is a good thing. This is why you start by pulling timing first. So if you look at this, we look at the 2 graphs, and we're gonna pick the zones where we basically remove the timing, which is gonna be all right here. So as you can see, it's the same freaking color. Nice work, Dyno, but made slightly less power pulling the 2 degrees out as we'd expect. The crazy thing is we didn't lose much power at all, nor did the boost curve change much at all, which tells us a lot. We're very close to that peak torque per ignition timing, that NPT number that we talked about earlier on, which tells us we're probably close to the knocking range. We lost negligible horsepower doing it, which means what? Keep it out. It's doing nothing for us. It's putting us towards the danger zone. And I mean, look at it. Like, there's at no point, it's so close. Like, we lost maybe overall 3 horsepower all around, which is 1%. So that's going to tell us to keep that timing out. We don't see our boost curve change much at all. Our fueling stays nice and clean, and we produce similar power. It's not worth it. But I think this puts us in that good balance between safe and producing efficient power. So if you look at the difference of these 2 graphs, this is the difference between 4 degrees of timing. The biggest worry is this point, right? Our peak torque point. That is the most dangerous spot ever. Torque is what's gonna blow your engine apart, right? And the sooner you make it, the more dangerous it is. So if you're gonna target anywhere, you wanna target here, right? This is the big thing right here. And you can control this with your ignition timing. We have been doing an overall global drop in ignition timing, but if you wanted to, you could still pull more out of this area to kind of dampen that peak torque number if it's too aggressive. But that being said, if you look at our peak, we actually kind of lost quite a bit of power in our peak here. So what we could do is we could put 2 degrees back in up top while leaving the timing out over here, and then just blend it. And then we split the difference. All about balance, making the calls. And like I said, that's the difference between someone who's done this for a long time and they've seen what they can get away with. They've seen what's responded really well, and making that call is up to you. Let's blend the 2 maps, do a final pull, and I think we're gonna leave it. There we have it right here. We have a nice long torque curve, which is really nice. No crazy peak at a low RPM that we have anything to worry about. Carries it out nice and well. Power is super linear and pulls really good. This should be extremely fun to drive. I know, like, 330 horsepower doesn't sound super exciting, but in a car like this, it's a stock SR. It's fun. This is where these things kind of thrive. It's a part of the experience. We gave you guys a very general idea on how to tune a car, and I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope you take these concepts and are able to apply them to not only maybe do something with them, but to just get a better understanding on how things work and how you might modify your setup differently, knowing how these processes all happen. This is the thing. This one went really smoothly. This is a smaller power car. It's a very simple car. There's no VTC, there's no VTEC, there's no nitrous, there's no ITBs, there's nothing crazy. And so there's so many more variables that could stack on, and that's what will make or break you as a tuner. Honestly, the biggest thing is when things don't go right. When you're having fueling issues, when you're having boost creep issues, when you're having weird feeling, when your ignition timing is not making sense, when the ignition timing is walking, like, that's what's really the make or break with tuning, is the diag of it. And for the guys that are out there who have done that, you understand that that's what will kill you. Luckily for me, I tuned a lot of shitty cars when I first started. Like, for people who've been around for a long time, you guys know I tuned all my friends' cars, and so I tuned a lot of cheap cars that were poorly built, and it kind of like gave me a crash course, and it allowed me to so I'm very grateful of it. It allowed me to learn a lot very quickly. But if everything goes to planned and your base map's solid, tuning can go quite easily, especially on a simple setup like this. I hope you guys have made it this far in the video because I know I've chatted a lot, but I hope you're happy with what you learned. And if you guys want to hear us go more in depth with anything or just in general, let us know, because we could definitely pull out a more intricate engine where we're putting more boost through it, more accessories on the engine, more control. And I mean, we could even do a whole ethanol segment. I think it's cool. But either way, cherry hatch is tuned. It's got a clutch pedal back in it. It's got a gas pedal back in it. I put all the parts in that. Oh, almost all the parts in that Tom stole last year for the Vinyl Bout car. I finally got a running, driving street car cherry hatch again. It has a different aura now, knowing that it's like an actual usable car, not a dead body anymore. But 330 horsepower, this thing should be a ball. Owes me nothing. It's just a pretty car. Maybe you want to paint it, Jordy? Come on, let's. You got that, right?
I got the link to that $400 paint kit. We'll get it done in a week.
Get Kai, get Kai going on there.
Yeah, free labor.
But screw this thing. I'm so excited to get back to work on the E36. So like I said, we're stacking parts for this thing so we can make some dense content on it. One of the next things we got to do is we're going to be pulling off this engine and actually refreshing everything, because the difference between it looking like this and it actually looking quite special is going to be a couple $100s from parts and just a bunch of elbow grease. Really want Jordy to have something special, and I think we all want to see it looking pretty sick. So
Yeah, I mean, after today, I don't even need you. I could tune this myself.
let's do it, right? Let's do it. You gonna tune it?
Yeah, I'll connect some red and green squares. Let's go.
We're gonna put this one on ethanol, so there's gonna be a lot more room for error. I'm gonna make you tune this fucking thing.
I'll tune it.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be overseeing it anyways. You're not going to let him blow it up. Maybe.
Now he's gonna let me.
No, because it blows up, it's my problem, so I'm not letting you.
Loopholes.
Like I said, take everything with a grain of salt, because there is so much more in depth we can go with, and there's so much more to it than just this. But I hope you guys still enjoyed it. But for now, you guys know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. And Jordy,
See you next week.
come on, do it nicely.
What the fuck is that? It's like.